Welcome to another episode of Omni Athlete. You're here because, like us, you believe that sport is a vehicle for elevating global consciousness. But you know that elevating consciousness through sport only matters if it actually helps you compete at your highest level. We created this show to empower your performance with the wisdom and techniques of the world's highest achieving mind, body, and spirit competitors. Okay, so today's guest is an ultra-endurance athlete who holds the distinction of being the first American to cross the finish line in 2018 at one of the world's most prestigious ultramarathons, the 106-mile UTMB. His success on the ultra circuit includes a top 5 finish at the 100-mile Run Rabbit Run and a win at the Bryce Canyon 100-miler, where he spotted the field an enormous head start due to stomach pains that forced him to walk for most of its early stages. While it would be easy to look at his career over the last 3 years and call it a natural progression to where he is now, with the multiple top 10 finishes and wins to his name, that story would barely scratch the surface of an athlete whose journey has been one of self-discovery, activating his authentic spirit, and accessing the power of his light as a profound source of energy. It's my pleasure to introduce to Omni Athlete, the man who quit his high school cross-country team because he thought 3 miles was just too far to run, Chris Hammes. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
So I think, besides my bumbling of the intro there, I think that the place to start would be high school, cross-country. 3 miles was too long, and now you're doing 100 miles.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But once I explain it to people, it makes a little bit more sense to them. Basically, the speed that it takes to run 3 miles competitively is not my style. 100 miles allows you to run slow and enjoy the scenery, enjoy the mountains, and that's what I'm out there to do. So
it seems like such a contradiction too, right? Like that you'd be able to really enjoy the pace of a 100-mile race more than the pace of like a 3-mile race.
Yeah, and enjoy is, I guess, take that with a grain of salt. Not every moment of a 100-mile race is enjoyable, but if you can look back on it and think that it was enjoyable, you can definitely give it a shot at another one, because there's definitely going to be tough moments out there, but you have to have short-term memory if you want to keep doing the sport.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
I just mean I tend to look back and think that wasn't so bad. Immediately after finishing, I'm always relieved to be done with a race of that distance. But two days after, I'm already looking for the next one and thinking back, like as the pain in my legs subsides, the reward of finishing that, regardless of the result or where you finished, it just keeps you wanting something more to try and find the next thing.
So what is your relationship with pain? We talked about this a little bit when we first kind of met and connected, but I would love for you to share that, because I'd imagine you go through quite a bit of pain when you're in the midst of a run.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to hurt at a certain point. It's more of just accepting it and being okay with it, training your body to not overreact to it, training your mind mostly, because it's going to hurt the same from mile 70 to 90 to 100 probably, but it's allowing your mind to be okay with that type of pain, and it has to do with training. Just building that up. You're building a physical strength with all the miles and all the training, but at the same time, even more importantly, probably the mental side of things that you build up for yourself.
How do you build that up?
An extreme amount of confidence, whether blind or knowing that you're fit enough or capable of doing the distance. You almost just lie to yourself at times. Whether you think that you're going to be able to finish the race or win the race or whatever your goal is, even if you have doubts, you just have to take that away and believe that you're going to do it. Even if you don't end up finishing it, you have to believe that you're going to.
Do you have anything that you go back to consistently that lets you, if you have any doubts, if you have any fears, that lets you really kind of override them, shift them, move them out of the way? Like, what do you do when that confidence isn't there?
It's more of just knowing that I signed up for it. This was my choice, and if I could choose anything else to be doing that day, I wouldn't choose anything else. It's what I love to do. It's my passion. And if I can pick one thing to do all day, it would be to run. So that's pretty much what I go to. It's more of like it brings me so much joy that I'm able to block things out. It doesn't take like a dark place for me to go to. Yeah. It's more of like the opposite.
What do you mean by that?
There's just certain motivators for different runners. So whereas someone may go back to their past and pull these darker memories and be able to just go into this, this primal state of like just if it's depression or whatnot, they're able to pull from that and know that nothing is as bad as those moments. Whereas for me, like if I stay positive and know that I'm out there doing what I want, there's no reason to be anything but happy, even if it hurts.
So that's incredible, because I think there is this notion of the darkness, right? That it gets talked a lot, I think, around ultra endurance athletes and around that side of the sport. But I think it's true of just high performance athletes in general, that this darkness is something that we can go to. But you're saying that isn't necessarily the place that you draw from when you need more energy.
Yeah, not for me. I mean, I'm sure that it's happened at moments, but it's always trying to avoid those places for me. The moment you start to have negative emotions or negative energy or anything, it can translate into just a negative day out on, like, in the race. And so going into a race, it's always been my mindset to whatever happens, don't go to that side. Go be positive. Yeah. So
where does that come from? Like, what?
I don't really know. There was probably when I started running road marathons, I was about 21, I think. And I don't know why I started thinking this, but I used to think you can basically wake up and start the day one of two ways. And one would be that it's going to be a good day or a positive day. And the other one would be that you can say it's not going to be a great day. Like if you go into the day dreading something about it, then yeah, it's probably not going to be great. But if you think like, okay, well, this is what I'm working with, like I'm up, I'm alive, like let's see where the day goes and just go at it with some positivity, then who knows? I mean, you're going to hit bumps along the road, but why not give yourself like a step up on it? So
how does that show up in the midst of a race? Like, say the Bryce Canyon, right, where you're going through a lot at the beginning of the race, and it doesn't look like it's going to be your day. How does that ability to kind of shift into the light almost allow you in those kind of moments to keep going and then turn it into a performance you're proud of?
Yeah, for that one specifically, it's a really good case of believing things will turn around, and if you can keep that positive mindset. Yeah, there was probably I can't remember, maybe around 30 miles in the middle of the race that I was pretty much walking it and just not able to run because my stomach was just a mess. But like once the sun went down, you start to feel better and things start to change. Just knowing that whole day that things were going to turn around. I didn't know if they were going to, but I also knew that I was well ahead of the cutoffs, and it's never my goal. My first and biggest goal is to finish the race. Yeah. I haven't had to push the cutoffs yet, but I'm kind of looking forward to the day of doing it, because that's when you really that's when you dig really deep. And I'm sure I can learn a lot more about myself in those moments than when I'm having success. So yeah, I'm definitely looking for that. I've always kind of said that I've been searching for like that failure, that point where maybe I can't do it.
So that's fascinating. And what comes up for me is this notion that, so you're subjecting yourself in a sport where like it's truly about who can suffer at the greatest level, right? Like who can suffer the longest, come out the other side, strongest, healthiest, whatever the case may be.
Right.
What about running draws you to that ability to say, like, just what do I have in me today?
I think for running, like, that's what I stumbled upon.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know any specific examples off the top of my head, but like everybody has that, that whether it's a sport or whether that it's like, it's art for some people, or it could be anything. It's just about finding that potential that you have, and just curiosity of what the body can do. And that's, I think, why I landed on running, because 100 miles is insane. Like, why would people do that? And so that's what I kind of thought originally. And even 50 miles, like the marathon it's a tough distance, 26.2. It doesn't matter. Like, and so it's not like I jumped straight into 100. There was this progression of seeing where I could go next. And so I think that's the biggest draw, just seeing what you're capable of. Because there's still, like, and it's always fun for me because people are always some people haven't heard of the sport of ultra running. So it's always the questions that I get kind of put it into perspective that it's not a normal thing to do. And that's what keeps it intriguing. Yeah.
So what is it like as an athlete that is training the way you are, also having to manage the fact that you aren't a professional football player, right? You're not a professional basketball player. You're not somebody who's getting paid millions of dollars. Even the professionals in your sport that are sponsored, it's not the same kind of lifestyle, right? What you're juggling a lot of things that I think the everyday person still juggles, and yet still finding time to train, to commit to progressing in this way. What is that like for you? What things help you do that?
Yeah, so it's definitely, I mean, it's busy, and it takes a lot of understanding people around you.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, just like family, friends, girlfriend, they all see the amount of I wouldn't consider it sacrificing, because I love being out there on trails. But it does, when I get done with work and need to go home and just sit for a little while, relax, and then I head out onto the trails for a few hours. By the time I'm done with that, I don't have the energy to go do social things. And so I'm constantly sacrificing like friends because of that. And so I guess in a way, yeah, there is a little bit of sacrifice. But at the same time, like I mean, it's not a hard choice for me. As far as like the balance of life, obviously I still have to go to a job and then get out on the trails afterwards. But it's always that running something to look forward to. So I could go to work and then be done for the day and know I have that still if it was a bad day at work or whatever. It's like I go out and have that release for a couple hours. And so it's not like I'm balancing a lot of things that I don't enjoy. And sometimes I'm not the best at balancing. Sometimes running takes precedence to everything. But I guess that's part of the downside of what I love doing.
Do you feel like there's an authenticity though to that commitment for you? Like when when you step out onto the trail, if it comes first that day, right? Or if it is prioritized over friends, family, whatever the case may be, how does that feel in your body? Like, where does that show up?
Well, I mean, I think it makes me a better person to be out there. So I'd like to think that even though I may be sacrificing time with the people that I love, I think that going out there and being able to go on that run is going to make me a better person for them afterwards. I know that as a whole, running's opened my mind up to just so many things in life where I'm able to let things go or just not worry about small things. And it just, I know that it may be a little selfish at times, but you have to do that in order to be a better person. So
where has running helped you just in life? When you say let go of the little things, or worry about them, how does that come from running?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it just calms me.
Yeah.
I am a much calmer person because of running. Like I know it's my meditation,
Yeah.
and so the ability to be out there thinking on things, and I may go into a run frustrated about something, and throughout the run, you just realize, like, if it takes me an hour or 30 minutes of thinking about this and realizing, okay, really not that big of a deal, it just allows you that break from everything. And so I think it just, I get done with a run and I just have low stress. The only time that I ever run where I don't think afterwards that it was a great run or that I'm better off for it is if I develop some sort of injury. If I'm healthy and out there running, then what more can I ask for?
Even when it's hard.
Yeah. Even on the days where I don't want to get out and do it, which is very rare, but you just realize afterwards, I've been injured before for months, and I think back on those times, and just to be able to be out there moving on trails it's awesome. I mean, I'm so lucky to be able to do it.
So the two stories that I'd love for you to share, number one would be the training you did leading up to UTMB, because I think that is an incredible way to showcase, number one, what kind of commitment it takes to prepare for something like this, but then also with a sport like ultra running, why it creates the opportunity for such a deep meditation. So what you're doing to train for UTMB, and then what the experience of running UTMB was. For those of you guys that don't know, UTMB, the vertical gain is greater than Mount Everest, right? So you're 30...
Yeah, 33,000 feet of gain alone for that one. So as far as you want me to talk about as far as what the training block looked like and just my preparation going into
and what your life looked like as you made that decision. Yeah,
so it was a really cool summer. Basically, it kind of has to start with my girlfriend and I, and then also my sister. We all live in Fort Collins, so it kind of started with a summer of camping. So we'd get out and get into the mountains every weekend, and by the time, so UTMB was August 31st, I wanted to give myself the best shot to get a good training block in, and I was already in the camping mindset. And so at the end of July, I quit my job at the coffee shop and took off for the San Juans, Southern Colorado, and went down there to train for, I guess it was about 3 weeks. And I drove down through Buena Vista and ended up, I was going to stay there for a night and ended up being there for a week just because I slept there the first night and was going to do a 14er on the way out of town. And then I got done and I was pretty tired, so I just decided, well, I'll go tomorrow. And then I found another 14er to do. So I ended up there, I think, for 7 days, and I ended up knocking out 7 of the 14ers out there. And it was just great training. So I finally took off for the San Juans after a week, and then did the next about 2 weeks down there. And why I chose that range is they have, how steep those mountains are. I've always loved running trails that I can't run.
What do you mean, that are hard to run?
Yeah, that you just, when the grade is steep enough to where you can't actually run, it's not efficient, and at times find yourself on all fours.
Seriously?
Yeah. And I love that because like I said, I don't like to move fast all the time. So
the image that comes screaming in my head is this vision of like oh my gosh, you have to be present every single step, I imagine, right? If you're climbing literally,
yeah.
you can't be like, you have to be there in your body.
Well, even when you're running, those trails down there, and we do have, I mean, all over the state, but how technical they are, and and it's the Rockies, so you got to watch your footing like crazy because, I mean, I probably only took maybe 4 falls during that 3 weeks. But like one of those can be bad enough to cause some serious damage.
Sure.
So you definitely have to be aware of where you're stepping. And also the other thing about like the San Juans is the weather. Just you're so exposed because all of my training down there was done basically between 8,000 feet and 14,000 feet. So yeah, you got to be pretty much present every day. But that's what makes it so awesome at the same time. You are truly, when you're out in those mountains, you're truly out there and on your own. And that's kind of what we search for in this sport, I guess. Figuring out a way to be self-sufficient in the mountains, being able to move efficiently, and yeah.
How is that energy different than just being in town, going for a jog?
You can totally lose yourself in town, and you don't have to be as focused, I guess. You don't have to be as prepared. And it's just like the running between town and trails for me is just so vastly different. As far as like and I still love running on roads. I like running on every surface, but when I'm on roads, I tend to listen to music and just kind of zone out. I love and there's times when I zone out on trails, but I love being able to not listen to music, look around, enjoy the scenery around me. I mean, it's music enough hearing your feet hit on the dirt every step. And so there's, it's just, you definitely have to be a lot more prepared out on trails. And there's also like the other factor of, like the weather and wildlife. You just never know what's going to happen out there.
It's almost like there's this tension that works in your favor a little bit in terms of kind of, in town, we get so comfortable, I'd imagine, right? When I go for a run, it's not very far, but I can, my brain will disappear, right? I'll be, totally just out of my body and I won't be present. And I would imagine it's because I'm so comfortable. And I would think on the trail, like you can be in that flow state where you are comfortable, but you're also so present because there is probably this underlying tension, I'd imagine, right? Like, you could, the weather could turn really fast, especially here in Colorado. I mean, all these different things.
Yeah, you always have to bring yourself back, even because you can definitely lose yourself a bit on trails and be outside of your head. Yeah. But you definitely have to bring yourself back every once in a while and make sure you're checking. Usually it's longer days on the trails, so make sure you're doing well with your nutrition. Make sure that you're paying attention to the clouds rolling in, or paying attention to if there's animals off the side of the trail that you need to be aware of. Animals are not something that I like to think about that much because I either make the choice of running out there with them or I don't do trails, and that's just not an option for me. So sure, I know there's a lot of wildlife out there, but they tend to not bother you. And I'll take my chances of being that one in whatever the number is. Yeah. But it can bring a little tension, but it's also extremely freeing, even more so, I think.
So what was UTMB like? And maybe the part that is I think all of it is really energizing. So I'm a little bit like salivating right now. So I'm just excited to talk about it. But like the notion of just running for the sheer amount of time that you run for in the night, you're running up and down this mountain. Like there is this point I would imagine where you're either flooded with thoughts or you're empty of thought. Like the experience seems incredible.
Yeah. And it's usually a good mix of both, a lot of thoughts and just a lot of clear headspace. With this one, I would say it's been tough to talk about because for each of the first 200 milers that I ran, and even some of the 50s, there's been this story to each of them. And those stories come from moments of like tough times during the race. So for this one, it was pretty interesting because I got done and was trying to think about the race for a couple weeks afterwards, and I couldn't really come up with anything. And I think it's because it went pretty close to just as I had planned. And that doesn't happen rarely. And it's interesting to think about, like, at that point, where can I actually go from there? If I'm not pulling any specific thoughts of like, how can I improve? Like it's tough for me to figure that out. And over time, like I'll learn some more things about that course and everything that I know I can pick up on. But as far as in-race thoughts go, I can only really think about when I would see my family going into, I saw them at 4 spots along the course, and it was great to see them, and I could remember like the moments shared with them at those points. And also just, it's a beautiful area. So obviously I pull a lot of my scenery, but I never remember any, like, usually I can pull specific conversations with myself, as crazy as that sounds, but moments of self-talk, and I just didn't have any of that really.
Do you think any of that came from the training that you did leading up to it?
Sure, probably. That's definitely something that I've always believed in. So like the training block leading into it, I camped the whole time, and I also never ran with anybody else during, it was 80 hours of running over those 3 weeks, and all by myself. So, and
during the course of the day, were you interacting with anybody? Was anybody with you? Was anybody,
my girlfriend and my sister would join me on the weekends sometimes, but I would still do the run alone. And so I'd have some interaction with people at like stopping in a coffee shop or something like that. But for the most part, I would just go back to camp every night and have a fire and sit and plan for the next day, plan the route, and it was incredibly relaxing. It was always the case where I'd get done with the run for one day and think, I wish I didn't have to do anything else for the rest of the day, and then I'd come to the realization that I quit my job and could actually just recover and relax, hop in the river for an ice bath. So yeah, the fact that I was alone, I think for all of that, it could have played a factor. I love to train how I'm going to race. Yeah. So the steep terrain, the high mileage and vert throughout my training, it correlated with the race, as well as just knowing that there's a lot of 100-milers that you can have a pacer for the last 50 or however long, maybe 37 and a half. But UTMB doesn't allow that. So I knew that I was going to be out there by myself. But I love it. That's I'm always going to train alone probably.
What's so interesting is that as athletes especially, right, our bodies, stuff surfaces in an unusual way within our body, right? So when we're training, thoughts, emotions, feelings, things just surface because a lot of times they're stored in our body. And I would imagine for a lot of athletes, we're used to training, at gyms, in team settings. I mean, we have people around us all the time, so that when things surface, we aren't necessarily by ourselves, right? We're not necessarily in this place where it surfaced. You don't have anywhere you have to hide from, right? You don't have anybody you have to go try to put on a face for. You're really just there to sit with and experience it. What has that been like for you? I mean, when big emotions show up as you're training or as you're just out on the trail, like, does having that room to not have to worry about, shoving it back down or moving it out of the way, does that allow it to just kind of be there and process and flow through?
Maybe. I mean, with the emotions that come with the way I run, though, it tends to be things that I do enjoy sharing. Yeah. It's usually me getting done with the day, and I remember specific days down in the San Juans where I'd get done and I'd message my girlfriend or my sister or somebody else in my family, and it was the greatest run that I had ever had. And then the next day was probably maybe the same thought. Yeah. But it's usually overjoyed. And the fact that I went down there, I had a lot of camping stuff in my living room before I left, and I tripped over something and I stubbed my toe into the wall, and I think I may have broke my pinky toe. So I was just hoping the whole time that was going to hold up and that I could actually train on it. Yeah. And descending was pretty rough at first, and it slowly just got better. But that was the biggest thing that I kept taking away from every day was, okay, I made it through another day. Like, let's look at how this feels. It doesn't feel any worse. I can go out for the next day. And so it was always just this really happy feeling every time I got done with a run, knowing that I had gotten in the hours or the mileage or the vert that I had hoped for that day, and that I was still feeling healthy. So that was huge.
There is this incredible dichotomy, right? And just these two pieces, right? So now I can feel the bliss on you when you run, right? Like it's just you're reeking of it. It's awesome. It's super cool, Chris. I just feel it. And yet I know running in high school was not fun for you.
Yeah.
So what, and I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but can you walk us through as you progressed towards this state where running just became this truly blissful experience that permeates everything? What happened? What made you stop running really? And then how did this start?
Yeah. So, I mean, I basically quit track and cross country my junior year in high school. And the biggest thing was I just enjoyed way more of a social life of, I guess, partying. And that continued through basically when I turned 21. And that's how I stumbled into my first marathon pretty much. There was a friend of mine who I actually ran with in high school, who was training for the Illinois Marathon. And a couple weeks before, he had posted something on Facebook saying that he had developed a stress fracture. Did anybody want his registration? So, and the races aren't necessarily cheap usually. And I was running 5 to 7 miles a day at the time. So I figured that I'd just give it a shot. And I went out, I think it was a week before the race, I went on a 16-mile run, which is terrible. I would never recommend that. But I just had to see if I could do something even close. And it went fine, blisters all over. But then I went down to it was Champaign, Illinois, and the next week ran my first marathon. And my parents came with me, and I was pretty hooked. It was right after that I basically said, I want to go back next year, or within the year I wanted to qualify for Boston. So that was, road marathons were going to be my primary goal. I think the difference of how I felt in high school to where I was when I started running road marathons was I think after that first marathon, I realized how much how much good it can do for my mind to be out there running longer distances.
Was there a point, whether it's after high school, like, so sometimes we have this, right, where we go through these cycles with our training. Was there something that happened in your personal life? Like, were you running, even when you quit cross country and track, were you still running? Were you still active, or did something happen and you said, man, I got to start running again. I got to get something changing here.
I did stop entirely for a long time. And I think it was because I had a relationship like at the end of high school, or like it was after high school, and it just didn't go as planned. And so I think I just thought like, okay, well maybe I'll try going for a run or something. And it was never like, it wasn't like I was gonna keep doing it consistently. I just thought like, yeah, I'll give this a shot again. And it was, I think when I realized that, like, if you do it by choice, maybe I was only doing like 3 miles some day, 5, 7 others. But if it's your choice, then it's a lot more enjoyable. You don't have to worry about like certain runs during the week in like we did in high school for specific training. You could just go out there and log miles and just be out there for however long you wanted to be. So yeah, I think I probably started doing that just because I knew I was lacking something. I was probably more of a negative person then too. I was lacking something to make me feel like I was actually getting somewhere. So,
and I mean, it's cool that you turned to your body, right? Like you said, okay, hey, like this is something that whether intuitively or whatever happened there, you said, okay, I want to get back to my body.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess I've always been horrible at any sort of art, so it couldn't be that. And I mean, I used to play piano when I grew up, but I remembered I hated practicing. And so the idea of learning that again seemed a little ambitious. And running, it's a sport that I always refer to it as a poor man's sport. All you need is a pair of running shoes, technically, and you can get out there and that's it.
It's so cool because I think like it's so easy for us to have a moment like that, whether it's in high school, college, like younger, older, where we're doing something that, at some point we enjoy doing. We stop because we don't enjoy it anymore. And then we never come back to it, right? We never are able to kind of find that spark again and then figure out what about that spark keeps us there. Because clearly, like, you grabbed it and now you said, oh, this is why I love this, right? This is why, and I'd forgotten it or I just hadn't accessed it yet.
Well, which is something that you bringing that up right there is something I think about at times. We all lost that at some point because as kids, what do we see with little kids constantly? I mean, the younger they are, from the time that they can actually stand up and walk and run, they're running for no reason. Like you put a handful of kids. If you're one parent, you put a handful of kids in the backyard and they go out there and they start running. Like for what? And it's usually followed with laughter and like it's happiness. And I don't know where, because most of us lose that at some point, but I don't know at what point running became so unenjoyable for so many people. And
what do you think?
I mean, at this point, I think you get busy and you go to school, and you are then told that for PE, you are told that you need to go run a mile and do it in a faster time, or you're doing these just drills in sports or something that maybe it's for football. The running part, it's not football. Right. It's like the conditioning, and it hurts. As far as now, when people tell me that they don't know how, like, if they're impressed with what I'm doing or like how I do it or something, I didn't start running 100 miles out of nowhere. It takes a build up and a base. And anybody that says that they don't enjoy running, go out there and run slower. Because sure, if you're going to go out there and you haven't ran in a year or 2 years and you try and do a mile fast, well, yeah, it's not going to be fun. I mean,
when you put it that simply, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like it sounds incredibly simple because it is. Like, it's not going to feel great at first, but don't make it feel like it's the end of the world. Like, take your time and just ease into it. If that even means like basically jogging slower than what you could walk, do it. I mean, it's not, once you build that base, you actually realize that it's enjoyable. And I mean, 90% of the time I'm out there running, I'll be able to have a conversation with somebody, and that's how it should be. I mean,
you mean from the pace that you're running at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe my pace is a little bit faster than some. Maybe it's slower than others. I just make it enjoyable. Yeah. Don't worry about like how fast or slow you're going. Just go out there and run.
There's a beautiful like spirit to that, you know, just this, I mean, there's so many words we use, right? Trust the process, be present. I mean, there's a lot of phrases that get used to describe what it feels like intuitively to me you're saying, which is just go be for the sake of being. Don't go out there to run a 10-minute mile or a 6-minute mile or a 15-minute mile, right? Just go be.
Yeah. People put so much emphasis on numbers and expectations, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, even for me going into a race, I have expectations for myself, sure, but there's no, like, if I can finish that race, there's no disappointment, especially with the people around me. Everybody just wants to see you happy and to succeed. And even if that doesn't mean finishing the race, like my family, if I had gone over to Europe and they had all come over with me and I had not finished that race, they would be just as proud of me, because it's not about the end result. It's about like chasing what you actually want.
So that's incredible. And it seems hard to balance, right? Because there's this natural tendency, and I imagine this is happening now too to you. Like, okay, so you've won a 100-miler, you've won a slew of 50s, you've got this now reputation building, and you just happen to go perform better than any American on one of the biggest stages of the sport. So how do you balance, okay, I'm going to keep training the way I train, but I know that if I put the right expectations on myself, this can become a profession for me. This can become my thing, and I don't have to do anything else. Like, that's a hard balance.
It is. And especially if you're just trying to make this more than a hobby, the idea of trying to gain sponsorship is a lot of marketing yourself, and it's not something I'm comfortable with. And so I'm trying to figure out that balance, and it's really fun right now because it's very new. But it's worth it if you can make what you love into more than just a hobby. And I don't know, the sport is relatively still small, and so I don't know where it's going to grow to, and I don't know what it's going to entail 5 to 10 years from now, but I'm definitely intrigued to find out. And if running ever becomes this, if it ever becomes work for me or just not enjoyable, then I'm not going to do it. I mean, because there's just no point. If
what do you mean by that?
Because at that point you're doing it because that's what people expect you to do. And just because people expect you to do something doesn't mean that's who you have to be. it doesn't mean that you should give up on everything just if it gets tough or something, but love what you do at the core of it. And if it becomes this everyday struggle of not wanting to go do it, then maybe it's time to think about something different.
That's hard as an athlete too, right? Because you're, at least, and maybe hard's not the right word, but it's like I can reflect on conversations and moments I know in my own life where that decision of, oh, this isn't fun for me anymore. This isn't like, I'm just not enjoying it anymore. Creates lots of pain when you are, not even pain, but it's something that takes courage to act on, especially when your identities become, hey, I'm this person who does this.
Yeah. It would be probably a much easier thing to continue with it.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, it can go to people, it can go to everyday jobs though, too. Like when you've been at a job for 10, 15, 20 years, however long, it's what you've been doing. And there's that fear of like, this is what I've been doing for the past this number of years. Where am I supposed to go from here? Like, this is what I've identified myself with, and it's with running and it's with everyday jobs. And it's tough because you realize that I have to find out who I am again. But I don't know. Maybe we're not meant to be the same person through our whole life, and that's okay. Just try and embrace whatever change comes.
So before this is incredible, Chris. Before I ask my final question, where can these guys go to connect with you online?
So the biggest thing funny thing about social media.
Funny thing about.
When I moved to Colorado, I didn't even have a smartphone yet. So I've been out here a little over 4 years.
Okay.
So I still have my flip phone, and I am all in on the Instagram now.
Even with the flip phone.
Yeah, no. I've definitely upgraded now. So on Instagram, it's at C_Hammes, HAMMES. I'm on Facebook as Chris Hammes. Not on Twitter at the moment. I just don't feel like I have enough to say. Yeah. Instagram's easy because it's all pictures of my trail running. But it's also, social media I've found to be quite enjoyable because my family and friends can see what I'm actually up to. So, and then on days where I feel like reflecting upon like some cool training, I get to go back and look through it too. So, those are the places that I can be found at the moment though.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So this show is called Omni Athlete because we want to understand what it takes to be the ultimate mind, body, and spirit competitor. So what does being an Omni Athlete mean to you?
It's a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think every day every run that I go on is an opportunity to learn something different. And that's a cool thing. You're always going to learn things. So just make sure just try and be positive and see if they can all be good things that you learn about yourself.
Chris, this has been great. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
This is awesome. Guys, if you don't know Chris, go check him out. Go follow him on Instagram. Do whatever you can to get in his world. There is such a bliss and energy here. It is super cool. Check him out. Follow him. He is going to be a rising star in this world. And until next time, thank you for listening to this episode of Omni Athlete. Hey, what is up, guys? Thank you for watching another episode of Omni Athlete. Please go like and subscribe to our podcast. That is our goal right now, is just to build this community as big as we possibly can, and we need your help to do it. So like and subscribe, share our content, guys. If this content adds any value to your world, that helps you perform, connect, go deeper, go wider, whatever it is that it does for you, if it provides value, all we ask is that you share our content and help grow this community. We can't accomplish our goal of elevating global consciousness through sport without you. You are an integral part of this mission and this purpose, and we need your help. So please go like, subscribe, and share our content. and continue to help us build and grow this community that is truly motivated to not just elevate consciousness, but elevate and shift the very culture of sport so that we can truly experience the athletic experience in a brand new and energizing way for so many people, guys. So thank you, and please like and subscribe. Until next time.